here for co-creating today, and on this edition of Cosmic Currents, we'll be discussing the astrology of the convoy. Meant to get this video out sooner. Technical glitches, accidentally deleted my recording. Now, here we are again, going through the astrology of the convoy. Let's get through it. Now, the thing is, we have a great movement happening. And what started out as a Canadian freedom rally, a Canadian truck convoy, has now gone global. And this has now become a global movement. But let's go back, before we move forward to the astrology, I want to give you a bit of perspective. So let's go back to 2020 for a second. Because that year alone, we had so much massive cosmic energy. We had that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, January 2020. Jupiter had conjunct Pluto 3 times. And this year we finished, that year we finished with the Saturn conjunct Jupiter on the solstice, and it was alongside Venus. You may have heard about this in the news, and it was regarded as the Star of Bethlehem. So, when slower moving celestial bodies form angles to one another in the cosmos, those effects can be even deeper and farther reaching, because these planets, when they dance in conversation with each other, then when they do that for an extended period of time. It's not a fast transit like a moon, Venus, personal planets like that, Mars, for example, Mercury. And their contacts, when they do dance in conversation with each other, are much less frequent. So many astrologers were definitely having their eyes on 2020, because one thing it promised to be was a turning point in history. And when we look back at the year, we'll see that as the pivotal year in redefining history. And one thing we can all agree is life changed for all of us. Now, that year began right after a powerful solar eclipse that was conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn. And that was December 26, 2019. And this followed soon after with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That occurred January 12, 2020. And what that did was ushered in a new cycle. These two planets are some big players in the sky, Saturn and Pluto. When they make contacts with each other, it's nothing to sneeze at. And to get a glimpse of how these cycles work, this is the reason why I wanted to go through this energy, because first of all, I recommend watching the trailer Changing of the Gods. It'll give you a much broader perspective of how that works, because this is the beginning of a new cycle with the Saturn Pluto. And this cycle occurs approximately every 33 to 38 years. And when these two planets, these meeting of forces, what they do is that they represent in part a redistribution of power in the world. Who will be in the power of influence, and who will, erode in power, which is a characteristic of Pluto. And this is also a powerful test for those who are in power. It's a test of integrity, morality, the proper use of power is a key factor in this conjunction. Corruption and manipulation. These are definitely ways in this conjunction and how it manifests. But Pluto has a characteristic of being obsessive. And Saturn is characteristic of control, archetypally. And it has rules of engagement. And with this conjunction, we'll see a blend of these two energies. But one thing we need to keep in mind is that Saturn is also the planet of karma. And one's negative deeds under a Saturn transit are definitely not free and clear. They do get exposed. Eventually, actually, because Saturn is Chronos, and Of course, it rules time. So all this will be revealed in due time. Now, to give you an idea of how this manifests, because the old adage, as above, so below in astrology, we need to present some type of examples when it comes to these type of conjunctions. And looking back at history, when Saturn and Pluto made their conjunctions, one thing that the Saturn-Pluto conjunction occurred was in October 1914. And this was around the outbreak of World War I. This global conflict certainly reshuffled the power dynamics. And this was by dissolving the Russian monarchy, the Ottoman Empire, to name a few. And I believe it was around that time the European borders were redefined under this influence. The other thing that happened was not during that cycle, but the next Saturn-Pluto cycle, which was in 1947. And that was soon after World War II ended. Germany and Japan, they lost military power under that influence. But the thing is, what goes tends to get replaced. And from that, in came a power struggle between capitalism and communism, and the rise of the Cold War. The following cycle of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of 1982, what that did was mark a time of economic recession in the world. And with that came the highest rate of unemployment. And that was in the US since the Great Depression. What it also did was mark the escalation of the Cold War during the Reagan administration. And later it led to the collapse of the Soviet bloc. Now, 1982 was also the year the AIDS virus was identified, and it had reached epidemic proportions, and it caused a slow, which is characteristic of Saturn, a slow, painful death. And the fear infection, what it did was endangered distrust, and caution in relationships and sexual interactions. But this Saturn-Pluto conjunction, what we're seeing is distrust on a world level, suppression by mainstream media, manipulation, coercion from corporate structures. And we all know the media has been the strong arm of these structures. A lot of people forced to reinvent themselves due to lockdowns, government overreaching, government tyranny, Saturn, Pluto. A battle for power is in the works right now. Another influence of 2020 was that Jupiter conjunct Pluto. And that occurred 3 times as the planets were in direct motion, went retrograde, and then went direct yet again, making contact 3 times. And Jupiter expands everything it touches. Now, Pluto rules the big money. And what have we witnessed? Definitely the biggest wealth heist in history. The super rich definitely got richer under this influence. There's no question. The expansion of paranoia and fear was had under this influence. Pluto ruling paranoia. Pluto also rules secrets. It also rules tyranny, also rules poison, also rules corruption. All this expanded under this influence. Pluto rules crisis. We saw how this cycle instigated a crisis because of our beliefs, and beliefs are ruled by Jupiter, what we believe in. Creating division amongst the people based on their perspective of all the information that was presented to us, presented to the people at large. And for those who acted based on their principles, based on their values, crisis was ensued and created division amongst the people. Now, the thing is, how did this Jupiter Pluto play out in history? Well, for one, it was the 1918 flu pandemic. Jupiter and Pluto were conjunct in Cancer. And this was the Spanish flu that broke out during this time. At that time, it infected and it was estimated about 500 million people, which at the time was 1/4 of the world's population. This also resulted in 50 million deaths worldwide during that, under this influence. The other time Jupiter and Pluto conjuncted was 1981, and that was the AIDS, HIV outbreak. And Jupiter and Pluto was in Libra, sign of relationships. And the HIV remains one of the world's largest pandemics that arrived in the United States, which has given rise to the AIDS crisis. Jupiter and Pluto made their exact meetup in Libra, the sign of relationships, a very social sign, in October and November in 1981. And when that happened, this also piggybacked that Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the same time, creating that huge layer of distrust, causing, this a deep level of concern. And when you see these two different conjunctions, like, you see how this layering of energy presents itself. Now, our pandemic at this moment is causing deep distrust in government, deep distrust in society, the structures that we have moving forward. And one point of note is that Saturn and Mars did move into Aquarius together. I believe it was April 1st. And what that did was that ushered in the lockdown. Mars is an accelerant. Saturn is all about restrictions. So the two together creates the accelerated lockdown. And it was in the sign of Aquarius, which rules humanity. And the world was essentially shut down at that time. And that's the guilty cosmic party right there. But that year, we ended up finishing with Jupiter and Saturn, conjunct 0 degrees Aquarius, and it was at the time of the solstice. And that's when Saturn re-entered Aquarius. And when it did so, hand in hand with Jupiter, and this is what astrologers have referred to as the Great Conjunction. Now, one thing to note with this conjunction, it's a 20-year cycle between Saturn and Jupiter. And it's one of the most important one of the most important energies representing a rise in new structures, new leadership, new authority, and new systems. And conjunctions in themselves represent a new beginning. So from the solstice and 0 degrees, there's this potent new beginning energy. And from 2020, this conjunction will happen in air signs for the next 200 years. This new conjunction that took place in the exact date was December 21st, 2020, at the beginning degrees of Aquarius. With it being a new air cycle, it definitely seeds into a new dawn, a new paradigm for humanity to unfold. What it does is it symbolizes a projection forward, a breakthrough forward, a shift of consciousness, new solutions will emerge, and that'll elevate global consciousness. This is also an information war, a war of information, a war of minds. The last conjunctions happened in the earth signs, and this coincided with the industrial period, a period of capitalism, materialism. That's what became the focus of the last 200 years, when Jupiter and Saturn had made these conjunctions over a period of 200 years in earth signs. Now, this time it's going to be more focused on culture, humanity, artificial intelligence, computer surveillance is another thing. Scientific and technological progress is going to be had under these influences as well. Global revolution. which ultimately results in liberation from political restrictions. So with all that backdrop of energy that happened in 2020, let's just look at 2021, for example, and which brings us to where we're at right now. And that was that Saturn-Uranus square. And what Saturn is the old is at odds with the new. Government being at odds with humanity. And they met up 3 times, and that was the predominant energy of 2021. And the last one, which occurred December 24th, 2021, caused a pushback from humanity against government restrictions yet again, government overreaching yet again. But one thing we need to know as well is that Uranus is the Great Awakener. And more and more people under that last influence were starting to wondering and see how much things just didn't make sense anymore. Businesses were, not all, in the beginning, were starting to rebel against the lockdowns. And Venus, just 2 days later after that square, went retrograde conjunct Pluto. And they're going to meet up again in March. And all this happened in the sign of Capricorn, the sign of top-down structures, the sign of government restrictions, the sign of obstacles, the signs of limitations. And it's also the sign of traditions. And Venus is having us reevaluate what we love and value here. And when she joins up with Pluto, she'll, again, as she moves direct, she'll be hand in hand with Mars. And Mars is going to offer that accelerant to it, that new beginning to things, that action-oriented planet will have that move forward. And with that, January, Uranus went direct, created this momentum. It did so at January 18th. So this awakening started, coming to the forefront. And what I liked about the date of the arrival, the scheduled arrival of the convoy, was the notable influences, the astrological influences that were coming to play during the date of the arrival and the week moving forward on this. Now, before I do move forward, one thing I wanted to point out is that that Venus-Pluto conjunction was written about in the Cartomancer magazine by me in the December issue. And I did point this out, that this was going to happen. And let me indulge in reading a paragraph of what I wrote in here. So again, with all that backdrop of energy that I was pointing out. So with all that backdrop of energy, as Venus conjuncts Pluto, we'll be into a reevaluation period. Exactly what a retrograde season is all about. As Venus joins with Pluto, it too will square Eris. There's an overwhelming prevalent energy of change, needing to let things go via revolution and taking to the streets. The difference now is that what I point out in this article is that as the nodes made their change into Taurus and Scorpio, they are now the dispositors of the eclipses that will happen starting this spring. And what Pluto and Venus do over the course of the year will be extremely important, because they'll add that flavor of the eclipses moving forward from now. Whereas before they were in Gemini and Sagittarius, what we call in astrology the lunar nodes. So on January 29th, Venus stationed direct, and she did so in beautiful trine to Uranus. Now, Venus is a planet of safety and security. It's the planet of relationships, and it's in the sign of Capricorn. Now, the trine is absolutely one of the most harmonious aspects in astrology. February 1st, we'll have the new moon in Aquarius, depending where you're at in the world. And this is a perfect time to set intention for humanity. Aquarius is the sign of humanity. And what it will do, it will square its ruler, Uranus, very tightly. 1 degree orb, I believe it is, which is an aspect of tension that creates change. And it'll activate that ongoing Saturn-Uranus square. We also have Venus, Mars, Mercury, all in the sign of Capricorn. Mercury is very tightly conjunct Pluto during this new moon. This is all about digging deep. When Mercury conjuncts Pluto, it wants to get to the bottom of things. Mercury and Pluto is very probing, likes to investigate secrets, for one thing. But as they cross the late degrees of Capricorn, moving forward from this new moon, where Saturn and Jupiter were, this is a revisiting of what was happening back in the end of 2020, and what was implemented then, and what's been happening since then. One thing I distinctly remember was this bubble effect amongst the people at that time. We were only allowed to be around a certain group of people, limitations, 5 to 10 people in some cases, different depending where you were at. So this trend of handling the pandemic from our government since that time will be talked about, will be brought to the forefront. This ushers in that new moon energy of liberation, of awakening, revolution, with Venus ruling values. Under the light of this moon will trigger that aspect between Uranus and Venus. With this new moon, with this new moon, Uranus, will bring that leap forward, and evolution forward to our values. This new moon is also conjunct Saturn. It shines a light on the restrictions, shines a light on everything, shines a light on government, shines a light on all things that Saturn defines, evoking these changes. Quick and unexpected changes too, because that's, beating to the drum of Uranus. It's the planet of unpredictability. It's a planet of, things happening at lightning speed. And also being exactly unsure how this is all going to turn out. But it's nevertheless great energy that is there. And with the Saturn-Uranus square, Saturn's been having the upper hand for the majority of the part of this ongoing square. Now it shifts to humanity. And the more we embody the qualities of humanity, the more we rise up in power. And the Aquarian qualities of altruism, enlightenment, awakening, the more we embody the higher vibe of Aquarian energy, the more we'll see the more positive outcome that can result from this square. And I have to say, throughout this convoy, we've seen nothing more than altruism come into play, awakening, revolution, all these for the sake of liberation. The rest of the week of this astrology, when the Conservative Party leader, Aaron O'Toole, said he'll talk to the truckers on Thursday. We have Mars in exact conversation with Jupiter on that day. Mars being the zodiac timer. Mercury goes direct this week, which is the planet of communication, transportation. And this week has potent energy of forward progressive movement, forward movement. And this all starting with Venus direct. And then we have that new moon in Aquarius evoking the change. And from the position of Mercury going direct, all planets, all major celestial bodies in the cosmos are in direct motion. From there, we'll see forward momentum, and which is very significant. The astrology that I'll leave in for another video. Now, this will evoke change, but Canada is definitely not done. So we have more work to be done, more revolution that's in the works, as Uranus will make its first exact conjunction to Pluto in its first house. but nevertheless, great energy of altruism, charity, change, with Jupiter, Jupiter transiting Pisces, and will make its first conjunction, and only conjunction to Neptune, coupled with that South Node in Scorpio, over the course of this year. Fraud and truth, all this will, secrets will all, get exposed under this influence. And I talked about this in the Node Shift video, and also in the Jupiter and Pisces video, about, the truth being boundless when it's in Pisces. Now, this new moon is, being in square to Uranus, and Uranus is in Taurus, the sign that rules food. And yes, we can see a disruption in our food supply, or, resource chain supply. And Uranus, it's not the first time. It just didn't enter Taurus now. It's been in there for a few years. And yet we have been seeing shipping crises for a variety of reasons. Here in British Columbia, obviously because of the weather devastation and the flooding that occurred in the fall. And prior to that, we had some port issues with shipping containers being backed up. And this will continue, disruptions in these areas for as long as Uranus is in whatever conversations it has with a variety of eclipses, a variety of major planetary bodies, as it transits and makes its way, walks through the sign of Taurus. Now, obviously a new moon is significant of something new, but with the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction on the solstice back in 2020, one thing to be mindful of is that this is a new era in the works. We can think back to the Protestant Reformation and the French Revolution. And what we need to remember actually is what my best friend Clover in Australia stated, and she stated it so beautifully. And this woman is actually a very beautiful, powerful psychic in her own right, but also a shaman in Australia. But that's another conversation for another day. But what she stated so perfectly. And this is what she said. Women know what giving birth is all about. And during the pain, the discomfort, the active labor, what we do is we listen to our own inner guidance. And everyone on this earth is here for this very moment, birthing this new era. And birthing this new era is what's asked of us. It's what's asked of you. It's scary. Our thoughts waver at times. And we're just not sure we can take it anymore. And when she told me this, I was like, wow, like this is so true. And this new moon lights up that call to action of birthing this new era, activating that Saturn-Uranus square. And one thing we need to remember is in history, silence kills. And what's happened in history, when we don't say anything, it leads to devastating consequences. And recently, we just have another grave of Indigenous people uncovered here, not too far at Williams Lake, BC. The devastation created on Indigenous people here in Canada over decades, centuries. And people knowing what was going on to these children, knowing these little girls were being raped, impregnated by priests to deliver these babies, and these babies thrown in incinerators. Children tossed in the waters, graves everywhere. The Holocaust. There's so many examples in history where silence and standing idly by created devastating consequences. We need to rise up as a society. stand up, speak up. This self-censorship has been going on way too long. One thing of note that I would like to share is that my father raised us, myself and my younger sister, since I was just before my 5th birthday. And what he has taught us is to watch how people behave and not what they say. He had very limited speech. He was severely handicapped because of a workplace injury, and during this recovery, he had a severe stroke, which left him paralyzed for life. He had me while he was handicapped, so I've never got to see him as a full, able-bodied man. And with limited speech, only those very close to him could understand him. It was his actions that taught us the value of loyalty, discipline, determination, all these beautiful qualities. And the thing is, when we use words, it's called spelling for a reason, because words can be hypnotic. Words can cast a spell. And what we need to do is pay attention to what people are doing. What is our government doing? And yes, it's great that Elon Musk, for example, is, paying tribute and support in our truckers' convoy, but is he donating? What are these people in positions of power doing is what we need to pay attention, never mind to what they say. And what people do will speak a heck of a lot louder than words could ever speak. And with my history of representing Canada on an international level as an elite athlete, and always being on that podium, more often than not, on the top level of that podium, and hearing my national anthem being played as the flag rose during the course of it being played, gave me a surge of pride, a slew of emotions came with the achievement and being able to represent my country on an international scale. And this convoy brings back that feeling after not recognizing my country for so long. When we have a leader creating and making so many divisive comments and contributing to the division and the segregation of my country. What I like about this movement, it's about unity. It's about global unity, the dissolving of borders, people of all around the world, all sorts of beliefs, religion, culture, whatever, coming together for a common cause. And that is an Aquarian principle. That is a Uranian principle, is groups of like-minded people coming together for a common cause, for the better of humanity, for the sake of enlightenment, for the sake of awakening. And things won't happen overnight, but over time. And astrologers don't say this lightly. When we say by the end of this decade, with all this potent and massive cosmic energy to play out over this decade, we're going to be in a different world by the end of this decade. So with that said, let's co-create this world together. And with this grassroots movement, we're here to create a better world for the sake of humanity. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Again, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. Helps the channel so very much, and I sure do appreciate it. I'll be back making more videos. In the meantime, I'll leave you with some more clips of the global evolution that's in the works. And also, don't forget, visit www.cocreatingtoday.com. There you'll find some amazing and wonderful, and I'm always adding more educational products to help you learn the language of astrology. And I'll be back making more videos to bring my interpretations of the cosmic energy at play with this convoy, with Pluto in Aquarius, stay on the lookout for that video coming soon. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.